Hey, Jason, great to see you.
Hey Garth, it's good to see you too. Happy Valentine's Day, buddy.
Yeah, is that time of year, I guess.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
crazy. Jason, I got a question for you to help
yeah.
us set up the pod today. Uh, sometimes we have talked about New Year's resolutions and ways of improving ourselves, and some people view that as what are the things that we're going to start to do. Jason, what are some things that maybe you think about when you need to let go of certain things? How do you do that?
Well, I think habits, Garth, are formed two ways, right? It's exactly that. It's a conscious choice to start or stop doing something and an ongoing reminder to do those things. So it's just a matter of, being in touch with your objective and your outcome and working on it. So I think that's how I look at it. Honestly, my resolution list has things to start doing and things to stop doing. And
Yeah,
I think both are equally important in habit formation.
yeah, yeah.
What about you?
Well, I just think it's an important thing for us to consider as we head into this discussion on belonging and inclusivity and respect. That I've been a product of independent schools, and I work at a school that's 130 amazing years old. And I like to say about Havergal College, we're a school with traditions, but not a traditional school. And
Hmm.
I like to think that we examine our traditions, we examine our status quo, and we make decisions on what we need to leave behind and how do we what will best serve us moving forward. And I think this is an important thing for us as individuals to do too,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to this work of inclusivity and belonging and respect, and leading with those three pieces as leaders. And so today we hear from Nicole Cozier, who's a colleague and dear friend of mine. She's our executive director of EDIB at Havergal College, and she talks about this. What else stands out for you? What do you have to look forward to in the podcast, Jason?
I just think it's a really rich conversation about this idea of belonging and what does it mean to belong to a community, today and into the future. And I think Nicole brings an incredible perspective to that for our listeners. And it's just a very approachable conversation about where everybody belongs. And so, I hope our listeners take a thing or two from this.
Yeah, yeah. Listen with an open heart and an open mind.
There you
Thanks so
go.
much. Enjoy.
Enjoy the show.
With Garth and Jason, we dive right in, breaking down Ted's world. Let's begin from AFC, Richmond's Field to your day to day. Lassoing Leadership's here to stay. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from Ted, we'll learn and grow.
Hi, folks. Welcome back. Season 2 of Lassoing Leadership. I am one of your hosts, Garth Nichols, and I am joined by my esteemed colleague,
Jason Rogers. I'm also a host of Lassoing Leadership, and today we are thrilled to be joined by a phenomenal guest to discuss how leaders can foster a culture and work environment that supports equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging.
that's right, Nicole Cozier, friend, colleague, executive director of equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging at Havergal College. Nicole's work focuses on creating inclusive communities, building capacity for everyone in that sphere of work, and where everyone feels valued and empowered to contribute their unique talents.
And Nicole brings a wealth of experience from her work in leadership and community engagement. Her efforts at Havergal aim to make EDIB principles not just initiatives, but integral to the school's culture. And Garth, you work alongside Nicole, don't you?
I do. That's right. And we're alongside in studio right now.
Yeah, I
It's
see that.
inspiring to collaborate with Nicole. Like, I find her approach is an amazing combination of strategy and deep empathy. But enough from me. Nicole, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I just wanted to see how long this love fest would go on. So I was thrilled to be just sitting here observing. So I'm Nicole Cozier. I use she, her pronouns. I've been here at Havergal for about 2 years now, and it's been great to be along this journey and have colleagues like Garth doing this work alongside me. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. Amazing. It's such a privilege to have you here. We only have about 20 minutes, and we know this conversation will be rich and meaningful. So why don't we jump right in? Jason?
Yeah. So, Nicole, I think a lot of our listeners are coming from education, but they're also coming from world of business. They might have the question is like, Nicole, what do you see as your vision for the work that you do at Havergal? What does somebody in your role aspire to do with respect to this portfolio?
So the work I want to see happening at Havergal is really anchored in a sense of how our students and our faculty and staff experience and use Havergal as a safe um, ground and space to actually explore and cultivate really important foundational principles that will allow us to move into the world to create more safe, affirming, valued spaces for people regardless of their identity. And the idea that we are in a space and an environment that is committed to excellence in all things really opens up an opportunity, because we cannot be excellent in academics, we cannot be excellent in leadership, we cannot be excellent in any of the things that we do without also being excellent in our community building, in our respect and treatment of each other, and creating spaces for people to thrive, and removing the obstacles that may prevent them from doing so.
Amazing. Our mission statement at Havergal is to prepare young women to make a difference. And you are speaking directly to that. So you talk about this as a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your journey to here, because you didn't start at Havergal. You didn't start this work at Havergal. You've been entrenched in this work for quite some time.
Yeah. So I always say that sort of my professional trajectory has been a bit of my own personal pathway to liberation or belonging, because so much of it was catalyzed by feeling that systems weren't set up in my favor or in the favor of other people and colleagues around me. And actually, in so many instances, that is the starting point, right? Like, so you see somebody else who's having difficulty and saying, okay, what can I do to remove the obstacles for you? And then realizing, oh, I have those obstacles too. Mm-hmm. And so in doing that in service of others, you are also creating opportunities for your own growth and development and pathway. So all along the way, in terms of, I started doing work in reproductive health and rights, in cancer advocacy. Part of that was around how we were ensuring that women and girls had access to the health care they needed and the life-saving knowledge that they needed around their own bodies and their own health. And that stemmed from my work in working in Planned Parenthood and then in cancer advocacy. That translated into what are some of the economic barriers that get in the way of women having access to these spaces. And so I started working in women's philanthropy in those spaces. Then it was around what are some of the racial barriers and the barriers around sexual orientation that prevent us from actually being able to connect with women across our spectrum. And that sort of opened up a pathway to doing work around racial equity, racial justice, and sexual orientation and gender identity. And so each career pathway has sort of built on and peeled back, if you will, another layer of the onion of what gets in the way of us being able to thrive as our authentic selves. And that led me ultimately to name the thing at the core of that, which is the work around equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging specifically.
Amazing. And then that sounds like it's obviously very purpose-driven and very close to home for you, Nicole. And I think we appreciate you being on the show and sharing that with us and with our listeners. On our last episode, Garth, you told a little bit of a story metaphor around a couple of things Nicole was speaking about connection and belonging. And it was pertaining to a party metaphor. Garth, maybe do you want to talk about that? And then I'd love to hear Nicole's kind of critical lens on the party metaphor or the supportive lens on that. Garth, for listeners, one more time, do you want to hit that metaphor quickly?
Yeah. I attribute it to Jeff Hutchinson. 2020 wrote about it on a LinkedIn post, which we connected in our last, which we put in our show notes. But basically, it was talking about the scales of inclusion all the way to belonging. That starts with you are invited to the party, and then it ends with this notion of belonging, where you feel that you can contribute to the party, like you are contributing to the party, you are the playlist, you are in on the designs, the decorations, and all those things. And it can be seen as a useful analogy because many people have an experience going to a party and not feeling like they belong, or hosting a party and trying to make people
Mhm.
feel belong. So I don't know, does that resonate with you at all, or?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of really important metaphors, and I think finding the one that kind of sits with us the most. I think I've heard that metaphor before, and it's one that has been really resonant with a lot of people. My approach often is like, what are the pieces and the nuances that sometimes get missed, and that's not necessarily the most helpful all the time when we're trying to get people who don't have a general concept to the table. But to me, I think that the metaphor, and without reading the quote more closely, to me, the metaphor or the idea of belonging is not just that I get a chance to participate in the planning, but the party is as much about me as it is about anybody else, right? And I think we have found times and places where we show up to the party as folks with marginalized identities, and we're doing the work of the party, but at the end of the day, the party has nothing to do with us. And so the distinction to me around that sense of belonging is not just, are we being called upon to participate and lend our best thinking and our best minds and our creativity and our energy in the creation of it, but at the end of the day, do we have a piece of the ownership of the outcome? And I feel like that's a piece that gets missing in many instances, and particularly people in workspaces who feel like they are grinding and doing the work and not getting the credit and not sharing the rewards and not having ownership or representation in the final product. And that to me is a really important piece of that belonging that may be missed in a metaphor like this.
No, absolutely. And you carry that a little bit further and, and talk about people who generally plan parties have the power, right? I wonder if we can build off of that a little bit more. We work in independent schools. We work in power structures that systems and structures seek to create and sustain. What's the tension you feel doing this work?
I think there are a lot of tensions in doing this work anywhere we're doing it. Independent schools are not unique in that regard, and I think it's really important to name that. But I do think some of the tensions that we're navigating all the time are, many of our institutions are long established. They have rich histories in tradition. They have robust communities that have come through these halls and feel very deeply and passionately committed to what that experience has been. And through that process, may feel like the things that make this school can't be changed. And the challenge always is, when we're doing work like this, is how do we balance holding the things that have made us successful and have created the sense of community that we hold dear, while also understanding that there are some of those things that have actually locked people out of that experience. And how do we get people to see where those things are and be willing to push through them and engage with them, and sometimes let them go in service of who we want to be going forward, not just who we've been in the past. And I think it's really challenging for our schools. I went to an independent school as well. And I think for a lot of people who have not been part of the sort of quintessential image of our schools from their inception, we have gone through, we've contributed, and how many folks have felt that they have been part of shaping, that they have been part of the product of our institutions and not just beneficiaries. And the work, I think, when we're trying to move this forward, is how we are holding the best of who we have been as an institution, while also letting go of the things that prevent us from being the best we can be today and in the future. And that's some hard conversation and some hard looks, especially if we feel like we have really benefited from some of these systems and structures. But there are folks who are coming through these doors that don't necessarily feel that they are the quintessential product of our schools. And they move through and they benefit, but they don't strike the imagination as, when I think of the quintessential independent school student, am I envisioning someone that looks like me? Am I envisioning someone who has my background, my experiences, my all of those things. And so I think the challenge is, how do we make sure the people who are coming to these institutions don't just benefit from the institutions, but they become quintessential and essential parts of the institutions and allow us to expand our mindset and our viewpoint around who a Havergal student is, who an Appleby student is, who a Branksome student is, all of the institution, a UCC student, insert independent school here.
Yeah. There's
Nicole, go ahead, Garth.
There's a follow-up question I have. Thanks, Jason. How will we know? Like, are you looking at metrics? Are you looking at qualitative, quantitative data? Like, where do you start to understand a baseline of this work?
Yeah. So I think, that's always the work and the struggle and where the critique often is in the nature of the work we're doing. The challenge often is, though, that our timelines for what this looks like and our trajectory don't match the entrenchment, right? So we're looking for sort of short-term success indicators for long-term entrenched issues. And we're also looking for things over time. So I think there are ways that we measure in the short term with inputs and outputs. But when we're thinking about outcomes and impact, that takes longer. And we're looking both longitudinally at what is the experience of our students. This is where a robust alumni connection is really valuable because we can check in with students after they've left, but also looking at sort of institutional impact and looking at the system's impact. And that's really important. So we are working on building in those metrics and developing a framework and some indicators that tell us, hey, we're on the right path. And then the other piece I just want to name around metrics that's challenging in this work is that they fluctuate. And just because a metric is looking good today and not good tomorrow, it doesn't mean that the strategies that we're employing are bad strategies. So part of it is also weighing, when do we need to change gears and when do we have to stay the course because we know this change takes time and we're not going to see immediate returns. So it's difficult work. It's important to measure. And the critics of the work will often say, well, what are the metrics? How do we know? How do we know that we're actually doing it? And would also challenge, oh, well, I would say we aren't doing it because we aren't seeing those things. But they're not measuring. Most of our institutions have had these roles, since 2020, maybe like 4 years, 5 years in a 150-year-old institution. Right. So we have to get really realistic about what it is we're looking for and not necessarily think about metrics, but what does progress look like? And what does investment look like to sustain it?
I think that is so important. I love what you highlighted, that we tend to look for short-term solutions to this long-term piece. And I think anyone doing this work needs to have a sense of how long this work is going to take. So I love that you pointed that out. Jason?
Now, I hear that and I agree with that entirely. I think, you talk about reconciliation, you talk about any of these matters, it is, generational change we're talking about. And I really love, Nicole, the work you were talking about around the fabric of these schools and how tightly woven it can be sometimes, but how we, by interweaving different perspectives, views, and belonging into that, we can create a even richer and stronger fabric for these schools in a go-forward basis. And this is our Valentine's Day episode, Garth. This will drop a day or two after Valentine's Day, and it's ultimately, about love. And I think love and belonging aren't dissimilar. They're things that are difficult to measure, and I think they're difficult to put your finger on. But I think day to day, we can do things to, demonstrate our love or to support belonging or those elements. And so that's, the question I want to wrap on my end with, Nicole, is we've got a lot of school leaders out there. Many don't have the benefit of having somebody in your role or a department in your role. And they're probably sitting back saying, you know what, give me something I can take away. And on Tuesday next week, try out or get started into, or what are the first actions you take to creating that, richer and stronger and more reflective fabric? What would the advice you'd give to a listener who's just sitting there saying, give me a starting point, Nicole? Where do I start?
Great question. And before I answer that question, I just want to go back really briefly to the metrics question, because I do think, to your point around the things we can measure day to day, I think there are definitely things that we can look at day to day. And an example that I think of really strongly is when we are doing cultural prayers and we have where we're noting dates of significance, where we're having our students come up and share aspects of their identity to the school. And they say, and we have seen this time and again, I came in feeling like I needed to hide this aspect of myself. And I leave here feeling that I have not only gotten to show this, but I've also been able to learn from my peers because I didn't have that connection with them. Like there are those kinds of moments where people reveal their sort of self-awareness and where they have been able to thrive and blossom in their identity authentically, and where they're supported by their peers and their peers have a sense of who, sort of the breadth of the world around them and who they are in it. Those are really important measures that we're doing the right kind of work, not always able to quantify, but really important qualitative pieces.
That makes sense.
Kind of what we are doing and what we can do. I think there are just some really important introspective questions because generally speaking, we go about status quo. And I know as educators and administrators and doing this work, we are constantly in a churn of so many different demands. And we don't often have the time to sit and reflect. And I think asking about, when I think about our quintessential student, who am I envisioning? When I look at these systems, who are they serving? Who are they serving? What do we need to do differently to serve the students and the community that is not envisioned here? How do we know? Have we asked them? What is the way that we've connected? Who are the decision makers? Who are the implementers? And how do we make sure that we are shifting the balance? So those kinds of reflective questions are really important in terms of sort of assessing the landscape. And I think anytime we're making decisions, asking where might we not be considering the impact on someone? And how do we need to shift our lens to make sure that those people are in our purview? So, and that's not work that you need to have any particular experience to do, but it is work that you have to have the humility and the willingness to say, we may not have it right. And what do we need to do differently? And so how can we hold that work without a sense of guilt or shame, but recognizing that that's part of our commitment in this space. And that's part of our work in this space to be able to say, we actually haven't asked these questions enough. We haven't actually done this work enough. We need to lean in and do that with a sense of enthusiasm and commitment.
Yeah, and I want to say in our organizations too, sometimes these types of questions come up against white fragility, right?
That is a whole other podcast, Garth.
It is a whole other thing, Nicole, but I think it's important to name, right,
so
in this
important.
moment. And what I'm hearing from you is that it's up to us to do the work ourselves first before we actually seek to change systems and structures within the school. Like that's the starting point for me that I hear, and that's certainly one that I espouse and follow too.
And if this work makes you uncomfortable, it's not the work that needs to change. It's a level of introspection that needs to happen that says, why am I uncomfortable with this? If my commitment is to our students, to our institution, to preparing leaders, what am I needing to get rid of or work through in order to be able to show up in a way that actually centers them and not whatever my feelings of discomfort are?
That's well said.
Well, you know what? Listen, Nicole, that time's flown by with you. Your perspective is enlightening, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and sharing it with us and our listeners. And before we wrap, just want to open the door are there any resources, books, organizations, leaders that you recommend our listeners who want to, delve deeper into these topics might jump onto?
Oh, there are so many. And I think I am drawing a blank, not because there aren't any, but there are so many. And so I have to think about the ones that...
we've... while you're doing that, we talked last week about the book Outrage, And there's in that, Kurt Gray, the author, references Daryl Davis. And I just shared this with Nicole this morning because I listened to his TED Talk from, I think it was 2017 or something. I can't remember. We'll put it in the show notes. And he is a Black American. He is a musician, and he sits down and befriends a Grand Dragon of the KKK. And his message is, you need to seek to understand, and you need to seek out respect, not to persuade, not to try and change people's minds. And he ends the TED Talk. You got to watch it. It's amazing. He ends the TED Talk by saying that after, I think it's 8 or 9 years of knowing the Grand Dragon and 8 or 9 years of having dinners and lunches in his home and attending KKK rallies, that the Grand Dragon steps down. It's like, I can no longer hold these two things in my conscience enough. So that's that would be a huge recommendation from me. Daryl Davis TED Talk. Yeah.
And there's so many. So I'm looking at my Audible playlist here.
Yeah, there you go.
So
hit us with it.
We Want to Do More Than Survive by Dr. Bettina Love. Deep Diversity by Shaquille Chowdhury. So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. Any of the books by Robin DiAngelo, White Fragility, in particular. So many. So I will stop with those.
Yeah.
And the one other I like to plug is Accountable by Dashka Slater. It's a young adult book, but it is so accessible and it is so relevant around what is happening in our communities around social media and how social media can really open up deep wounds and cause deep harm in our school communities, and what happens when we don't navigate that well.
Yeah.
So I just think there are many more that I'm sure I am missing at the moment, but those are great ones to start with.
There's another one which has come out, and I don't know the author's name, but it's called Everything I Learned About Racism I Learned in School, which is pretty powerful too. Nicole, thank you so much. Like, you embody like such an incredible purpose. And there's something we talk about on this podcast a lot is when your inner drive, your identity, and this willingness to do this work for your own self, for your own personal liberation, but also for the greater good. And so we love you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, y'all. It's great to be here.
All right. Well, to our list, don't forget to send us any questions. No doubt there's quite a few of them. And be sure to send them to us, lassoingleadership@gmail.com, LinkedIn, etc. So that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you so much for our listeners. And Jason, why don't you take us home?
Yeah. Until next time, keep leading the Lasso way. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, Garth.
Thanks, Nicole.
With Garth and Jason, we dive right in, breaking down Ted's world. Let's begin from AFC Richmond's field to your day-to-day. Lassoing Leadership's here to stay. Keep leading the Lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from Ted, we'll learn and grow.
Hey, Garth, what'd you think of that show?
Oh, Nicole is a powerhouse. I mean, she's amazing, and she's passionate. And you and I talked a little bit about this, Jason, even before we got her on the podcast. Doing this work is hard enough. Like, now we put her on the spot and say, hey, explain your role in 20 minutes and how nuanced and complex it can be. I just want to acknowledge that, like, the average tenure of people in this work is less than 2 years, because it is so emotionally tied to who they are and who they're working with too. And we know our students take this cause up with passion and with emotion and with love too. And it's hard work. So I hope that our listeners really appreciated what she brought to the podcast, because I appreciate what she brings to the role every single day.
No doubt. What a great guest. That was awesome. Thanks. Thanks for that, Garth.
Bring the questions on too.
Yeah, I look forward to that. Okay. Yeah. Enjoy.
Step up to the mic. It's time to play Lassoing find we've got heart, we've got soul, and humor too. Exploring how TED shows what leaders should do. With Garth and Jason, we dive right in, breaking down Ted's world. Let's begin from AFC, Richmond's Field to your day-to-day. Lassoing Leadership's here to stay. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from TED, we'll learn and grow.